Okay, now we're going to make our graph. I'm going to make him in green. This color green, whatever that is. Oh, that's way too big of a dot. There we go. Brush size 6. So I'm going to go back and look through my problems, and I see that, well, part number A doesn't need to be on the graph because we never actually would have had pure NaOH. But I would have started at time 0 with a pH of 1.82. So I'm going to put my first dot right about there. That color might be a little too light to show up. Oh, it'll work just fine. Before I added any NaOH, my pH of my original solution from B was 1.82. After I added 15 milliliters of NaOH, I calculated a pH of being 2.6. Didn't change too much at all after adding 15 milliliters. After adding 30 milliliters, I'll find my 30 milliliters on the spot. It was at 2.98. So again, we're not seeing much of a change. We're almost to 3 at 30 milliliters. At the midpoint, remember we said midpoint would have been at 50. At the midpoint, we calculated the pH to be 3.35. So somewhere, give or take, right there. After adding 60 milliliters, we were 3.53. So again, as the buffer got better, we didn't see much of an increase in our pH as we went. 80 milliliters, we were at 3.95, just almost to 4 here. And then at 95 milliliters, we were at a pH of 4.73. So somewhere almost to 5. So again, we had this nice, slow, steady pH curve taking place. Maybe look something like that. I don't know. That's really bumpy. It shouldn't have been that bumpy. That's just my best drawing with my hand. Draw it faster, it won't look as bumpy. But the pH is slowly rising as we add NaOH. But then we reached the equivalence point. And I'm not going to quite connect the dots yet, but at equivalence point, at 100 milliliters, we figured out that the pH was equal to 8.37. So we saw quite a bit of a jump at equivalence, somewhere, give or take, right about there. And then when we added just 5 more milliliters of NaOH, we saw a huge pH spike again to 12.09. So somewhere up here at 12.09. And then at 130, way off at the end of the graph, we saw a pH of 12.81, so just about to 13. And we have a nice, pretty pH curve. What's going to happen here is the line's going to almost go vertical. Chances are if we did 97, would still be somewhere down here, so it's not going to go up at this line. It's actually probably was going to continue along and then shoot to an almost vertical slope at that equivalence point, and that's what our pH curve was going to look like. Again, over the distance of, I'm going to switch colors, from here to here, we added 10 more milliliters of NaOH from 95 to 105, but our pH changed from just south of 5 to 12. It changed by a factor of, well, it changed by 7, which in pH terms, that's 7 zeros. I mean, we're talking a giant pH switch, and that's what a titration curve helps to show us when that actually happens.